Jesus is God, then why did he cry out, you know, my God, or why did he describe God, the Father, as his God? If Jesus is God, then how can he have died? My name's Jason. I'm 37. I was brought up in Northern Ireland. I live in Belfast, and I grew up, like many people did here in the north of Ireland, in a Christian environment, in a Christian house. I was taken to church as a child, and as a teenager, I took that decision on myself to be a Christian and to follow it very religiously, you could say. And it was a big part of my life, and I never ever imagined that I would become a Muslim. I spent the whole of my 20s, I would describe myself looking back as an atheist. I kind of strayed very far away from the church, away from God, kind of lost heart in the Christian message. But I never thought about looking into any other religion. I studied theology as my undergraduate degree, so I was very interested in religion in general, the impact it can have on individuals, on society. But as I said, throughout all my 20s, particularly when I moved to Belfast from the rural area where I'm from, I really lost interest, to be honest. I lived in England for 12 years, and that was a lot of fun. But fast forward to the spring of 2023, and I made a trip to Sierra Leone in Western Africa. I was invited there by a contact that I have, who, a friend of mine now, who's a Muslim, Hassan, who runs an organization, a social work organization there. And we made contact through Twitter at the time. My career is, I'm a social worker, and that's how we got in discussions with each other. That's how we made contact. And he said, why don't you come out to Sierra Leone and see the work that we're doing here in social work? And I love traveling. And I thought to myself, wow, what an amazing opportunity this would be. I'd never been to Western Africa. And so I went. And I didn't realize that I was going during Ramadan, for one thing. And second of all, whenever my friend picked me up from the ferry, I got into his car and he was playing the Quran through his radio, and it just struck me as something so beautiful. I'd been to other Muslim countries before, been to Morocco, been to Egypt, but I don't think I'd ever heard the Quran being played in this way. There was something about it that really struck me. And looking back now, this is probably when the seed was planted and I started to become interested in Islam. And then after my month away in Sierra Leone in the spring of 2023, and I just had Islam on my mind. And that summer, I got into the habit of running. I lived in Sussex, along the south coast, and I got into the habit at night time of running along the seafront. And I started using TikTok more and more at that point, and I came across these nasheeds, and there was something about the nasheeds that I found very, very powerful and very captivating. I saw a website that said that they were they would send you a free Quran to read. I'd never in my life read the Quran, and I thought, yeah, I want to get my hands on one of these and see what it's all about. That summer, I read the whole Quran, and I spent hours and hours and hours watching YouTube videos of Muslim scholars debating Christian scholars, and I started to really understand the message of Islam. I was floored, to be honest. I had never heard people discuss some of these issues in the way that they were doing. And they asked questions like, if Jesus is God, then why did he cry out, you know, my God, or why did he describe God, the Father, as his God? If Jesus is God, then how can he have died? And even though I'm very interested in religion, I've thought about a lot. I thought about, you know, Christianity a lot. Some of these questions I'd never asked myself, and actually started to reread the New Testament and look at it from an Islamic perspective. And it seemed to me that Jesus was always pointing us to God, never claiming to be God himself. Never wanting or asking to be worshipped himself, but always encouraging us to look to God, to follow God, to submit to God. And what I started to realize was that this is the consistent message of Islam. It all was the same message, that we should submit and repent to God and worship only him. And I realized this is what Jesus was saying. This is what Muhammad was saying. And it all just started to piece together for me. And actually, it came to a point at that stage where I found it, all of this, a bit kind of unsettling and a bit unnerving, because any revert might say the same thing. Like, becoming a Muslim is so much more than just accepting the theology and accepting the belief. When you come from a completely different kind of environment, there's something about it that challenges your identity and challenges all the things that you've taken for granted all the years that of your life. And, you know, the idea of the Trinity was the way that I really understood God and understood how to connect with God and speak to God. So when that was kind of started to be stripped away, I didn't really know how to feel. Last year, I thought I pretty much knew everything there was to know about Islam, but what I've found out over the past year since I became a revert has completely transformed my way of thinking about life, about faith, about community. These are three of the most surprising things about Islam for me as a revert. First one has got to be how gentle, how kind, how caring, how embracing the Muslim community are. Now, we hear so much all the time in Western media about negatives of Islam, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that it's something that's very cold, it's very exclusive, and that someone like me, who's just a guy from Northern Ireland, wouldn't be able to be part of the Muslim world. But that hasn't been the case at all. I've really been welcomed with open arms, and the strength of community is like nothing I've ever experienced before. The second is how big of an overlap there is between Christianity and Islam. I think there's many myths and misconceptions out there that Christianity and Islam, it's Jesus versus Muhammad, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, there's a difference of opinion. In Islam, Jesus is the Messiah, he's the messenger of God, but he's not actually God, as is the case in Christianity. The third is that Islam is not just for people who are Arab or from the Middle East, it's for everyone, it's embracing of everyone. And actually, the country in the world that has the most Muslims is Indonesia. Islam isn't a do whatever makes you feel good type of religion. It requires incredible discipline, commitment, and sacrifice. If as Muslims we believe we're called to something higher than the pursuit of our own pleasure and gratification, our faith calls on us to turn away from laziness, distractions, and addictions. Let's take the issue of alcohol, for example. Here in Ireland, over 70% of men who are over the age of 15 are considered to be hazardous drinkers. In Islam, we're called to abstain from alcohol. I have felt this sharp divergence in my own life from someone who used to drink to now, for about a year and a half, I haven't had any alcohol. In increasingly atheist and secular places like the UK, it can make some people feel uncomfortable if they see Muslims being so strong and visual in their faith.
نبيا ورسولا
تكبير الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. Alhamdulillah. Welcome. Brother.